Mark Stoops. Good day for Mark Stoops, I would imagine. Who else is it a good day for as it relates to Mark Stoops?
Well, I don't know if it was a good day for Mark Stoops. So the story of let's want to move because this is part of the Week 13 recap I wanted to get to now with Texas A&M.
Well, he's going to get up. So the reports were over the weekend that he was going to go to Texas A&M, and now he's supposedly staying. So it's a good day to be Mark Stoops. He's done this about 4 times, and he'll get a big raise out of this, despite Kentucky continues to be an average program. And at some point, I think you've got to ask yourself, is Stoops even a very good coach or just an above average coach? But nevertheless, he's going to get a big raise out of this.
Is he? I think this was a fan revolt that killed the hire. I think Stoops wanted the job. I think this was a Greg Schiano situation. I think Texas A&M Twitter went off, and I think Stoops backed out because he didn't want the backlash from the fan base. And I think you and I both agree Stoops doesn't really want pressure, honestly. And I think it was too much pressure for him to go to Texas A&M with the fan revolt. So I think he backed out and decided to stay at Kentucky. But I think Texas A&M settled anyway because I'm going to just go ahead and say they made the best hire of the offseason. Y'all know how high I am on Mike Elko. That was a heck of a hire from Duke. I think Mike Elko is going to win. I'm just going to call it. I got 2 national championships for Mike Elko at Texas A&M.
Gotcha. I think it's a very good hire. I think that Stoops would have been the opposite hire, a defensive coach compared to an offensive coach, a guy you don't have to pay a lot of money, a guy that brings stability to the program. It made sense, but have you ever been around a coaching hire that almost makes too much sense? Like you're trying to do the exact opposite of what you did before, and sometimes that blows up in your face. Michigan wins their 3rd straight against Ohio State, and you seem to think that Ryan Day's on the hot seat. You think Ryan Day's agent was reaching out to Texas A&M at any point over the weekend?
Maybe. I think Dabo Swinney's was. I think Dabo Swinney clearly does not feel appreciated at Clemson, and I think he was reaching out. I can't say for Ryan Day, but I think Ryan Day should be. I'm going to say it, guys. I think Ryan Day should be fired. I think Ohio State has too much talent. You can't lose to Michigan 3 years in a row. Ohio State's I don't care about history. Ohio State's a better job than Michigan. There's kind of a pretty big gulf to me between which job is easier. I don't know if you agree with me on that, Dave, but I don't even think Michigan is in the same tier as Ohio State in terms of a better job.
And, actually, don't either.
Yeah, and Michigan.
I think it's the equivalent of Tennessee beating Georgia throughout the 90s.
Yeah, there was no excuse for Tennessee.
I mean, Georgia's got to go out and fire Drunken Ray Goff. Florida State, Texas complicate things for the College Football Playoff Committee. That will be on Tuesday night. The chaos is real, and it is. If you had to pick 4 teams that'll make the College Football Playoff right now, and I'm going to ask you to rank them too, who would be your 4 and in what ranking? And I want to get to Tennessee's rankings as well.
Well, so right now it's pretty easy. It's Michigan number 1, Georgia number 2, Florida State Florida State number 3, Washington number 4. That's based on resume. The 4 undefeated Power 5 teams. But the chaos comes is like what happens if Washington loses to Oregon? What happens if Alabama beats Georgia right after struggling with Auburn? Then you got a lot of chaotic scenarios that could still happen. You know what the College Football Playoff Committee wants is they want the 4 undefeateds to win. Easy, clean, call it a day. Dave, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think they would never admit it, but they would like for Florida. Does Florida State who they play in the ACC championship game?
Louisville.
They would love for Florida State to lose that because Jordan Travis is gone and hurt.
So then get Texas in the playoff. Okay, that would still be easier. Yeah. Florida State, Texas,
more star power. I think that's what you want. I think they would like that. Now, the question I had for you is Tennessee didn't make the top 25. They get 98 votes, and we're not going by the College Football Playoff ranking. We're going by the AP, which I think is the best one. Tennessee's 23 in the coaches poll, which is largely done by sports information directors that don't understand football. So I go with the AP, and until the college football ranking comes out. But why do you think Tennessee dropped out of the top 25 altogether?
I don't know, and
I'm sorry, behind teams like Toledo, Oregon State,
also even
James
worse,
Madison, SMU.
Oregon State to me is the worst one actually at 8-4. If you're going to sit there and say like 10-2 group of 5 teams should be in over 8-4 Power 5 teams, fine. But why is Oregon State like just have some consistency because they're also 8-4. And okay, let's take a look at Tennessee's 3 losses right now. No, they have 4 losses. 3 of them are to top 10 teams. Georgia number 1, Alabama number 8, Missouri number 9. So how could you honestly say that Oregon State's 8-4 is better than Tennessee's 8-4 when Oregon State they both have a bad loss. Oregon State's is to Washington State, Tennessee's is to Florida. Both of those teams finished 5-7, and then Oregon State lost to Arizona, Washington, and Oregon. Okay, but I think Tennessee's 3 losses outside of the one bad loss are better. So I don't see how you put Oregon State all the way up at number 21 and have Tennessee outside of the top 25. It just doesn't make sense to me. They're at least on par with each other.
Let me ask you this. You wrote they stumbled, that Texas A&M did, into the hiring of Mike Elko. Did they really? Did they? That's not stumbling if a fan revolt or Stoops tells you no and you end up with your second best guy. Your stumbling is what Tennessee mastered in the 2010s. If your second guy you go after and get is Mike Elko, who you and I both really like, that's actually a well-run coaching search, and it just took like 5 days.
I think they stumbled because I think a fan revolt killed a hire.
But see, I don't think Stoops would have been a bad hire in and of itself. I would have told if we woke up and Stoops was the head coach for the Aggies right now, I would have said good hire. Elko, I would say potentially great hire. You swung for the fences. I think with Stoops, you got a guy who hits a lot of doubles. With Elko, you've got a guy who could be the Albert Pujols of this coaching generation.
Okay, so we just have a different definition on. Wow, yeah, I agree with that. We just have a different definition of stumbling into hires, I guess.
I don't know that Tennessee, in some situations, had a solid number 2. And I'm trying to think back. Lane, Dooley, Butch. I didn't cover Jeremy Pruitt, the coaching search, nearly as closely, but who was the solid number 2 in any of those coaching searches? It had to be Lane because they were not going. That's why they fired Philip Fulmer in the middle of the season, is to get Lane.
Wasn't Butch Davis competitive in that search?
The Lane one?
Yeah.
No, they fired Philip Fulmer to get Lane because he was going to go to Washington. That's who they wanted. That may be the only coaching search that has happened in the past 15 years where they just went out and got who they wanted. Now you could argue they shouldn't have wanted him, but Dooley, who's your fall off after that? Butch Jones, who's your fall off after that? Jeremy Pruitt. I think that's the guy that delivers my mail. Is the fall
Butch Jones was actually the smoothest coaching search. It just was not a good hire because if you remember correctly, Tennessee, they reached out to John Gruden first. John Gruden didn't want the job. They went to Charlie Strong. Charlie Strong didn't want the job. They settled on Butch Jones afterward. And so, but the others were stumbles. As far as A&M, I guess, what about this? Clemson, they stumbled into Dabo Swinney, didn't they? That was just an assistant that they hired after a coaching search in the offseason. And I remember there were it was. And there were rumors that Fulmer might even take the Clemson job after he was fired by Tennessee because that was the same year that happened. I don't know how real it was. Fulmer may have floated that himself.
You think a call was made to Jimmy Sexton? Hey, that'd be good. I'd take that Clemson job. Well, hell yeah, you would. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Take that job.
Wanted to go a couple.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to hit up a couple points real quick with this, Dave. These rankings overall show how insane college football is going to be overall next year. Of the top 13 in both polls, only Florida State is not going to be in the SEC or the Big Ten next year. We're watching 2 big championships games on Saturday, Washington, Oregon, and Michigan and Iowa. And they're all in the Big Ten next year. Texas is in the Big 12 title. They'll be in the SEC. And then, so we have 12 of the 13 in 2 conferences, but there's going to be 6 automatic bids for the college football playoff. So you're really going to have to convince me, Dave, that there should be 6 automatic bids when 12 of the 13 best teams are in 2 conferences. Does that make any sense?
Not really. I'd say the other thing that doesn't make sense is Bo Nix is probably going to be on my Heisman ballot. That doesn't sound right. Sounds like something that you would have said 4 years ago and laughed at, like a Bill Burr special or something. hey, that Bo Nix is going to be on Dave Hooker's Heisman ballot. But it looks like he very well might be. You've got now help me with this, because I know the way you do power rankings, but your Heisman race, these are just actually the guys that are going to win the Heisman. It's not recency biased, right?
Yeah, it's not recency bias. It's specifically who should be leading at the moment.
So you have Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., who always plays hard, Jalen Milroe at Alabama, Jordan Travis as well, who's probably not going to be a factor because of the injury. Whether or not he should, we could debate that. I can't think of another guy right now, but I'll do a lot of studying on Sunday. I can't think of another guy right now I would enter into that grouping of Nix, Daniels, Penix, and Milroe.
It's really just the top four. Because, Jordan Travis won't go, but I think he should. I just don't think it's fair. I thought the same with Hendon Hooker last year.
And I test, which I don't base my Heisman voting on. I get up Sunday morning and I really put a lot of time into it. It's Jaden Daniels followed by Penix.
Penix. See, I would go Jaden Daniels followed by Bo Nix with eye test.
That's fair. I need to look at the numbers and I need to look at the big game performances. I'm not going to pretend to know everything about Oregon and Washington. So,
the whole Pac-12 title game, the Pac-12 title game is going to determine the Heisman winner. If Bo Nix wins and plays well, if Oregon wins and Bo Nix plays well, he wins it. Washington wins, Michael Penix plays well, he wins it. If Washington wins but Michael Penix plays poorly, which is really possible, I think Jaden Daniels wins it. But if Oregon wins, I think Bo Nix wins it, period, if Oregon wins.
All right, so let's get to your top 10, which we kind of discussed a little bit. It's brought to you in part by Don Self. Customer service still matters. State Farm agent Don Self and his team take customer service seriously. For well over 40 years, they built their business and reputation on taking care of their customers in Collegedale and Ooltewah, as well as the greater Chattanooga area. Don and his team pride themselves on making sure you and your family won't have any surprises at the time of the claim. Customer service still matters. I know we're all looking for the best rate, but customer service still matters. So give me your top 10 and be thankful that you put the top 10 on Off the Hook Sports and you're not an actual AP voter, because I've been told that's pure hell.
Oh, I could see that. All right, so I chose the path of least resistance.
It's not figuring out who's 1, 2, and 3. It's figuring out who's 21, 22, and 23.
No, that's fair. But 1, 2, and 3 is all that matters. But anyways, I chose the path of least resistance. So Michigan's clearly number 1 to me, and Georgia's clearly number 2. You could interchange those. I think it's debatable. And then Florida State is 3, and Washington is 4, and Ohio State is 5. But Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. I would listen to an argument for Ohio State at 3 ahead of Florida State and Washington, because their only loss is on the road to Michigan, who I have at number 1, and they have the number 1 ranked strength of schedule. So
I totally agree. No, don't be surprised if that's the case. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me at all. So in your top 10, how many teams do you think could legitimately win the national title? Let's assume they take care of business this week. For those that have conference championship games, I'm going to go down the list, and you tell me if you think that they could win a college football national championship, and we'll get a little help from our friends Hank Kingsley.
Hey now.
And
that's crazy.
Tracy Morgan, as well as
you suck, you jackass.
Because we can't get enough of them. And then there's always Peyton.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Paris?
That's hot.
All right. Michigan, number 1, they can win a title, right? No, there's no doubt about it.
I'll say yes, but I'm not thoroughly convinced they can.
Well, can and will is 2 different things.
Yeah, but I think they could.
Okay, can.
Hey now.
Georgia.
Could Georgia win a national title? I don't know.
Florida State.
No, they can't win it.
Nah, not with the Travis injury.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Sorry.
I mean, and it's not like Cardell Jones with Ohio State because people are going to bring that up in 2014. But Cardell, what we all knew in that time was Urban Meyer had a system that Urban Meyer always had 3 quarterbacks at any point who could play in his system, right?
Okay, let me give you some news. Washington cannot win a national title.
That's hot.
And let me tell you why. They don't have the guys up front the same way that Notre Dame didn't when Brian Kelly was there, the same way that Oregon hasn't at times when you thought they were the most exciting team in college football. Washington can't win a title, especially if Penix comes up soft.
I actually agree with you. I don't think
Ohio
Washington
State.
can win.
Ohio State. I just got to move on from that, or I'll get distracted. Ohio State 5. They could win a title, right?
Yeah, they could win one.
All right.
Hey now.
And let's see,
Oregon.
So we got said Oregon. Could they win a national title?
Yeah, they've actually recruited War Daddies out there. That's why they're good this year. Dan Lanning has gone all in on War Daddies up front.
Hey now.
I'll agree with that. I like them more than I like Washington, actually. Texas, can they win a national title?
No, Texas can't win it. They wouldn't even belong if they got in, but they would get in because of that win over Alabama, and that's all they'd have.
That's hot.
Agreed. And then Alabama, could they win a national title? Yes, because of Nick Saban, period, in the discussion.
Yes, and those are the only 8 that could, and yes, they could win a national title. But the question is, can they beat Georgia this week to win a national title?
Right. So I think there are actually I'm taking Oregon off the list, and I'm taking
No, you took
Washington.
Washington and you took Washington and Florida State.
Washington and Florida State. I'll leave
So
Oregon on there, but I think there's 6 teams that can win a national championship. I'll leave Oregon on, but I'm 50-50 on that.
Yeah, I think 6. And there's 8 teams that have a realistic shot to get in this weekend, and only 4 control their own destiny. Like, here's the crazy part. The 4 undefeateds are the only ones who control their own destiny. If any of the ones lose, it becomes very tricky on which one-loss team you put in. Because honestly, Dave, I'll say this. Chaos, ready? What if Alabama beats Georgia? Are we sure we should put Alabama in over Ohio State?